Kubernetes and GKE Part 29. This episode has 2 questions. For each question, take a moment to think through your own answer before I share a strong approach. Question 1. Explain GKE. Here's a strong way to approach it. GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine, is a managed Kubernetes service provided by Google Cloud that lets you run and operate clusters in Kubernetes without manually managing the control plane or infrastructure. Core idea: GKE is Kubernetes, but fully managed by Google Cloud. You focus on deploying apps, not managing the cluster itself. Why GKE is used: it removes the operational burden of setting up Kubernetes control plane, managing upgrades, maintaining it, handling scaling of master nodes, ensuring high availability of cluster components. What GKE manages for you: 1. Control plane, fully managed. Google handles Kube API Server et Kube Scheduler, Kube Controller Manager. 2. Upgrades, automated Kubernetes version upgrades, patch management, rolling updates of cluster components. 3. High availability multi-zone or regional clusters, automatic failover of control plane. 4. Security, IAM integration, workload identity, network policies, private clusters support. What you manage in GKE: you still manage worker nodes or node pools, application deployments, pod configurations, services, and networking. Partially GKE architecture: Google managed control plane, API server, scheduler, controller manager, et customer managed nodes, node pools, kubelet, kube proxy pods. Types of GKE clusters. 1. Standard GKE, you manage node configuration, more control and flexibility. 2. Autopilot GKE, fully managed nodes plus control plane. Google handles scaling, provisioning, optimization. Paperpod model. Key features: 1. Auto-scaling cluster, autoscaler, horizontal pod, autoscaler, HPA, vertical pod, autoscaler, VPA. 2. Networking, VPC, native clusters, load balancing, integration, cloud NAT and ingress support. 3. Observability, cloud monitoring, cloud logging, managed Prometheus. 4. Security, workload identity, IAM based off private clusters, binary authorization. GKE versus self-managed Kubernetes. KubeADM. Feature: GKE KubeADM control plane, managed, self-managed setup, effort very low, high upgrades, automatic manual scaling, built-in manual maintenance. Google handles, user handles. Simple analogy: think of KubeADM Kubernetes equals building your own house. GKE equals living in a fully serviced apartment where maintenance, security, and utilities are handled for you. Use cases: production microservices at scale, cloud native applications, AI or ML workloads, enterprise applications needing high availability, fast deployment without infrastructure overhead limitations, vendor lock-in. Google Cloud, less control over control plane internals, costs can be higher than self-managed setups. Interview-ready definition: GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine, is a fully managed Kubernetes service provided by Google Cloud that automates the deployment, scaling, and management of Kubernetes clusters by handling the control plane, upgrades, and infrastructure, allowing users to focus on application deployment and workload management. Nice. Let's continue. Question 2. What is X? Here's a strong way to approach it. X, Elastic Kubernetes Service, is a fully managed Kubernetes service provided by AWS that lets you run and manage clusters in Kubernetes without managing the control plane yourself. Core idea: X is AWS's managed Kubernetes platform where AWS handles the Kubernetes control plane, and you manage worker nodes and applications. Why X is used: it simplifies Kubernetes operations by removing the need to install and manage control plane components, maintain et cluster, handle API server availability, manage master node scaling and upgrades. What AWS manages in X: 1. Control plane, fully managed. AWS manages Kube API Server et Kube Scheduler, Kube Controller Manager, high availability across multiple AZs, automatic patching and upgrades. 2. Security, integrated with IAM for authentication, encrypted et secure API access. What you manage in X: you manage worker nodes, EC2 instances or Fargate node groups, pods, deployments, services, networking, partially via VPC. X architecture: AWS managed control plane, API server et scheduler, controller manager, worker nodes, customer managed kubelet, kube proxy pods. Compute options in X: 1. EC2 worker nodes, traditional VM-based nodes, full control over instances. 2. Managed node groups. AWS manages node life cycle, scaling, upgrades. 3. AWS Fargate serverless compute for pods, no node management required. Key features: 1. High availability control plane, spans multiple availability zones, automatic failover. 2. Autoscaling cluster autoscaler horizontal pod autoscaler, HPA Carpenter, modern node provisioning tool. 3. Networking VPC native networking AWS CNI plugin load balancers, ALB or NLB integration. 4. Security IAM-based authentication IRSA, IAM roles for service accounts. Private clusters security groups integration X versus Kubernetes versus GKE feature X GKE Kubernetes control plane managed self-managed setup effort low very low high cloud dependency AWS Google Cloud non-node management user or managed user or autopilot user upgrades managed automated manual simple analogy think of Kubernetes equals building your own house X equals renting a fully maintained apartment in AWS ecosystem GKE equals same idea but in Google Cloud use cases enterprise grade microservices OS native applications hybrid cloud setups. Scalable container workloads production systems requiring high availability limitations AWS vendor lock-in cost of managed control plane some networking complexity, VPC or CNI setup. Less control over control plane internals interview ready definition X. Elastic Kubernetes service is a managed Kubernetes service from AWS that automates the provisioning and management of the Kubernetes control plane while allowing users to run workloads on EC2 or Fargate-based worker nodes, providing scalability, high availability, and integration with AWS services like IAM and VPC. Great, moving on. That wraps up this episode. Nice work practicing. And see you in the next one.